The Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns, Houston Rockets, and Golden State Warriors are named as the 4 potential landing spots that Jimmy Butler could be traded to that he has a rumored interest in. However, there are other rumors that say he does not want to be traded and the Heat are actually going to hold on to him. So as NBA fans, we are left with a question. Is Jimmy Butler actually going to be traded by the deadline? My take on these rumors is actually Jimmy Butler will not end up with one of these 4 teams, and there's actually a different Western Conference team that has the best package for the Heat and need Jimmy Butler desperately. We'll break this down some more, and we'll talk about other news in this week's episode of In Case You Missed It, the weekly recap on the show that drops every Monday at 3. Circling back to Jimmy Butler rumors, the momentum behind a trade headlining him is building daily, as the Heat don't really have any of the makings to truly compete, and the age of Jimmy is only increasing, so holding on to him is only going to be a negative, especially if the Heat are unable to correct their glaring deficiencies. Then you look at his contract that ends in 2 years, and knowing that he wants a max extension after that, and knowing his age at that time, another max is simply put ridiculous for the Miami Heat to pay. However, desperation around the league is growing as the talent on every team is reaching points we have not seen, so someone will pay Jimmy Butler simply because of his name and playoff history. So realistically, the Miami Heat should capitalize on Jimmy's value right now, as teams specifically in the West are as desperate as ever. You have the Suns, who cannot win without KD on the court, the Warriors, who need an elite co-star to Curry, and the Rockets, who need a true number 1 option in the West. The Dallas Mavericks have no reasoning to trade for him, so I really have no idea why they are even rumored. But here we are. The Suns logistically have no financial way to make a deal unless Beal is willing to waive his no-trade clause, making Phoenix a difficult destination in terms of finances. Then the Houston Rockets would have to mortgage a good chunk of their rising young core in order to facilitate a deal, making it really a pointless and unnecessary move for them, especially when Jimmy Butler cannot shoot, and that is the greatest area of concern for this team. But the Golden State Warriors, they are desperate, they have expendable assets, and they need a Jimmy Butler. However, the possibility of overpaying for him is something they cannot afford to do. Andrew Wiggins has been amazing so far this season on both ends of the floor, but unfortunately no deal for Butler can really be made without adding him into the package. I, for one, would not do that if I am the Warriors, because in all honesty, Wiggins' defense has been major to what their successes have been this year, and moving him would have a horrible effect on the team's performance on that end. So the Golden State Warriors should not trade for him, if you ask me. They need to focus on their size along with star power. The price for Butler is too steep for them to logistically add him, and that's the same case for the 4 teams rumored to actually be on the Jimmy Butler market. So it's a really weird thing. But there is one team with assets and enough financial flexibility that could make a deal without having to give up a huge piece. This team is a contender right now, but their playoff history has signified they need another player that can consistently get buckets outside of their 1 option. This team is currently the 2 seed in the Western Conference and are led by Ja Morant, and they need to add Jimmy Butler to solidify themselves as contenders. Sure, they need size as well, but there are options for that. In the playoffs in their 2 seasons before last, they struggled so much offensively that their playoff runs were short-lived as the offense was brutally bad. There is an option to add a center still after adding Butler, but the baseline for a Butler to Memphis deal is as follows: Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, and John Conchar. With those 3 players, the money adds up to make Jimmy Butler joining Memphis financially acceptable. Then you probably add either draft picks and maybe a Gigi Jackson. Smart and Clark are both movable and can get you even more returns if you flip them for more favorable assets. In simpler terms, the Heat could do what the Blazers did with Drew Holiday for Smart and Clark. And knowing that, I think the Miami Heat and Memphis Grizzlies are the best pairings for any Jimmy Butler trade. The Heat want assets in return, and the Grizzlies need someone to take them over the top in the playoffs. This won't hurt Memphis in the regular season, as they keep showing us that they have a top regular season team if they are not devastated by the injury bug. Let me know what you think, because I honestly think that Jimmy Butler to the Grizzlies makes the most sense out of any deal, and is the best win-win trade that can be made for the Heat. And if the Grizzlies want to contend this year with OKC and Dallas, they must make this move. I still think the funniest part of these Jimmy Butler trade rumors is the fact that the Heat have been playing their best basketball of the season recently, and now the rumors are starting. While we're on the topic of trades, this week the Golden State Warriors made a big trade, adding Dennis Schroeder from the Nets in exchange for DeAnthony Melton and 3 second-round picks. I honestly don't know what the Nets were doing here, because they could have at the very least gotten a first-round pick for Schroeder, but instead opted to get 3 seconds and a player that will never play for them. That's not ideal. For the Warriors, knowing who Dennis Schroeder is and knowing he can play well on and off the ball and defend, he is a perfect fit next to Curry and within the team system. They needed a complementary guard to run the team in non-Curry minutes, but who can also play really well next to Steph. Perfect fit. Golden State is reportedly still in the market for a start, even despite this deal. Around the topic of trades, we might as well just jump to New Orleans. Not Brandon Ingram related this week, actually, even though obviously he's about guaranteed to be traded if the package is right. It's actually Herb Jones related. And the reason we need to talk about this is because realistically, are the Pelicans really going to trade Herb Jones, a player with a great contract and is a great complementary piece to any lineup you put out there? They probably shouldn't, and he's young, so it makes even less sense if they do that too. I mean, they have Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and DeJounte Murray. All four of those players are great offensive players. They need defense around that. They're going to trade one of those four, maybe even two, but you need defense around. You got Herb Jones. That's a perfect piece to have. So any rumors surrounding Herb Jones being dealt is kind of ridiculous at this point. Now, if they get a Mikal Bridges level package, I get it. I mean, they probably would be intrigued by it and could say yes, but at the same time, Herb Jones is too perfect of a player to have to just consider trading him like that. So I don't believe these rumors are even true, at least on the Pelicans end. The in-season tournament was probably the second biggest thing of the week behind the Jimmy Butler drama, as we had both the quarters and semis of the tournament this week, and some of the games were cinema. Trae Young is still the biggest villain in New York, as he was shooting dice on the Knicks logo. This was a gesture towards the Hawks clinching a spot in Vegas, but it is still funny. Trae dropped 35, 7, and 10 in Vegas against the Bucks, but unfortunately for him, the Hawks did not win the game. Speaking of the Bucks, what a week for them. I mean, they advanced to the in-season tournament finals, but all of the decisions being made by Doc Rivers in terms of lineups and rotations are still being overlooked, as you aren't hearing anything about the adjustments he has made, allowing the Bucks to have a complete turnaround. Doc Rivers has swapped Gary Trent Jr. and Andre Jackson Jr. in the lineup, as Trent comes off the bench now, and although the numbers don't scream out, his efficiency has been much better in this role. With Andre Jackson Jr. in the starting lineup, the defense of the team is much better, as Jackson guards the best perimeter players in the league. Trusting AJ Greenmore has been massive to the success of the team as well. The rotations that Doc Rivers has in place now are designed in such a way that has put every player in the best possible position for success. Moving west, we had the Rockets-Thunder matchup in the semis, and my goodness, this is the next best rivalry brewing in the NBA. As the last two matchups now, we have had grudge matches, as these two teams do not like each other at all. The Thunder got the last laugh this week, as SGA, iHeart, J-Dub, and Lou Dort all went off. This team wins every game in a different way, and that is the scariest part about them. The Rockets, on the other hand, have been amazing all year, but in both of their games this week, we were able to confirm two things about them. The first thing we can confirm is that this defense is amazing, and despite not having a true physical interior force, scoring on this team is incredibly difficult. Unfortunately for the Rockets, the other thing we can confirm about them is that their offense is absolutely horrible, especially against teams that can run defensive schemes to neutralize Alperen Sengun. This team, simply put, cannot shoot, and the only player that can beat a defender and get downhill consistently is Jalen Green, and coincidentally enough, he's their worst defender and has a very questionable decision-making process. So the Rockets are going to have to live with him on the court unless they figure out how to add someone that can hit shots from long range or just be better offensively. There are very glaring issues with this Rockets team, and although they had a great start to the season, they got some issues to work out. Quick news around the NBA. Thomas Bryant was traded from the Heat to the Pacers to help the center depth in Indiana. Jared McCain is out indefinitely with a meniscus injury. Kawhi Leonard back in practice this week. Jason Tatum is dealing with an injury. Brandon Miller had a game this week where he shot 15 threes out of 21 total shots. Alperen Sengun is a crash out. The Lakers look bad, and the Suns still cannot win without KD. And finally, the Week 8 awards. The MVP is Giannis. I mean, he averaged 34 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists this week in a 3-0 week for his team. The surprise player is Jalen Suggs. I mean, that isn't a surprise anymore what he is doing, especially without Franz or Paolo right now, but he earned this award as he averaged 29.7 rebounds and 3 steals a game this week. The team of the week is the OKC Thunder, as they had 2 impressive wins against the Mavericks and Rockets this week. The worst team of the week is the Brooklyn Nets, as on top of going 0-2, the Nets managed to get scammed on a trade for a player with value, which just made me extra disappointed in them. If you want to see my power rankings around the screen, we got a little movement, so feel free to pause the screen and check that out. If you want to watch last week's episode of In Case You Missed It, it is the thumbnail with the Grizzlies on the screen as we break down why they're the scariest team in the NBA. And then if you want to see the best trade target for every NBA team, in my opinion, that video's on the screen with Jimmy Butler and Anthony Simons. Where could they be going? Y'all stay safe. Have a good one. Bye.